Chapter 655. 2,100,000,000. Amon was the first to shout. Brody did not back down either. 2,200,000,000. 2,300,000,000, Reed said coldly. The crowd was at a loss for words. The fleece flower was definitely worth a lot of money, but these men would be making a loss if they kept bidding like this. Nonetheless, it seemed like none of them intended to stop, and the crowd could only watch on as they battled. Leonard sneered coldly. He was about to raise his hand when Wilbur got to his feet and said, "I can't believe you're auctioning off a fake. Do you really think we're stupid?" What? Everyone was shocked to the core. Who the hell was this guy? And how dare he say such things? The expressions of the elder four, excluding Leonard, changed drastically, and they looked over at Wilbur. Bruce's gaze flashed dangerously as Eliam and John's expressions turned cold as they glowered at Wilbur. Leonard stared at Wilbur dumbly for a second before he shouted, "What the hell did you just say? Are you out of your mind?" Wilbur sighed. "The fleece flower's a fake, Mr. Thatcher. I can promise you it's not a day older than 2,000 years. No way. Yeah, this guy's crazy. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Beckett, and the chairman confirmed themselves that it was real. What is he on about?" All at once, the crowd broke out into murmurs amongst themselves. However, all of them were against Wilbur and no one was questioning the legitimacy of the fleece flower itself. Just then, Eliam flew to his feet and shouted, "Are you questioning us, young man? What's wrong?" "Can't I?" Wilbur retaliated at once in a matter-of-fact tone. Eliam walked up to Wilbur, giving him a once-over coldly. "Young man, you were just commenting on my master's spiritual pills left and right, and now you're saying the fleece flower's a fake. I think you came here to cause problems. Spiritual pills aren't a big deal to begin with. Is free speech not allowed here?" Wilbur said, unimpressed. Leonard shouted then, "Hey, you shut your mouth before I shut it for you." "Bro, I'm not going to watch you walk into a trap without doing anything," huffed Wilbur. Yet Leonard did not seem to appreciate the gesture in the slightest, glowering at Wilbur. "I'm telling you, another word and I'll kill you." Wilbur let out a sigh, shaking his head as he looked back at Leonard. Just then, Bruce got to his feet with a smile. "Young man, you just said that the fleece flower was a fake and denounced the spiritual pills. What can you do for you to say something like that?" Wilbur barked out a laugh. "Those spiritual pills are hardly worth anything." "What a joke. How dare you?" Eliam shouted, pointing at Wilbur. "How dare you question my master's spiritual pills? I think you've got a death wish." Yet Bruce merely chuckled. "Don't get riled up now, Mr. Hayes, since this man seems to think so lowly of these spiritual pills. I'm sure he's got some skills of his own. Why don't we let him make some spiritual pills right here, We'll have nothing to say if they really turn out to be better than your master's, right?" Eliam sneered, saying nothing. However, Bruce's tone turned cold. "If you can't make a spiritual pill, or the one you make ends up being subpar, you've got no right to question anything like you did, and you'll have to pay for your words." The crowd nodded in agreement. Eliam's master was an ambience-level cultivator, highly skilled in alchemy. How dare this young man slander him like that? Chapter 656. Leonard looked at Wilbur coldly as well. "Mr. Chairman, this man has nothing to do with me and his views and words are his own. I hope that much is clear." "You brought him here, so you can't say that and call it a day," said Amon coldly. Leonard frowned, glaring at Wilbur. Even Catelyn glared at him too. Bruce let out a chuckle. "That's all right for now. Let's have the young man show us his skills before we decide on that." He then looked at Eliam, who waved a hand with a scoff. Two men brought a cauldron over, placing it in front of Wilbur. "Get him the materials required to make 10 spiritual pills," Eliam ordered, and the two men hurried off to do as they were told at once. Wilbur glanced at the cauldron. It was made of copper, standing over a meter tall with 2 handles on each side. There were carvings of clouds and herons on it as well. Eliam said, "This is the cauldron I used to make pills. You're lucky enough today that I'm lending it to you. Do your best. This cauldron is one of Mr. Hayes' prized possessions. You really are a lucky man." Bruce commented with a chuckle. Wilbur snorted. There was hardly anything special about this cauldron. It did not contain any additional powers aside from being a sturdy container to make pills. Was this supposed to be Eliam's prized possession? Eliam's expression darkened at the sight of Wilbur's clear disdain, his gaze turning murderous. Just then, Eliam's men had finished preparing the materials needed for 10 spiritual pills, laying them down neatly next to the cauldron. Eliam said, "Go on then." The elder four and Catelyn watched on coldly to see just what Wilbur was capable of for him to say such things in front of Eliam. The rest of the crowd craned their necks, waiting for this young man to make a fool of himself. Alchemy was a complicated process. It required knowledge, a good formula, and for the alchemist to at least be of beginner ambience level for them to channel the spiritual flames required. On top of that, control over the flame was another important factor. There were layers to something as simple as the spiritual flames that the pill was brewed and forged over too. It was clear that alchemy was no small feat that anyone could master, let alone an idiot like this man. If he were to fail or turn out to not know a thing about alchemy at all, Bruce and the other ambience-level cultivators would not go easy on him. In fact, this young man might have to pay for his words with his own life to quell the rage of these masters. Wilbur snorted at the sight of the onlookers, shrugging his shoulders. "I guess I'm going to have to show you a thing or two then. The floor's yours." Bruce's tone seemed polite, but everyone knew that he was luring Wilbur straight into death trap. Leonard was trying to distance himself from Wilbur just then, watching him coldly from the sidelines. Wilbur sighed. He understood why Leonard was acting this way. Wilbur would not believe himself if he was in Leonard's shoes either. The only thing he could do now was show what he was capable of, making his words sound more convincing. Although Wilbur had never made any pills, he searched through the memories in his dragon cell to find a section on alchemy and read through all of it. Honestly, any skill from the dragon cell was probably miles ahead of anything the current world was capable of. Wilbur walked up to the cauldron. He picked up all 10 batches of the spiritual pill ingredients, tipping everything into the cauldron at once. His action caused the room to burst out laughing.